Things are not looking any better for Kari Lake than they were the last time we checked in on her. Now her own fellow Republicans are begging her to move on from 2020, and she will not.
You say you care about the fentanyl crisis and our kids.
I care deeply.
Okay, right. So if you care so deeply about this, couldn't you actually do something about it if you stopped the about the last election? If you had just acknowledged that Trump had lost and acknowledged that you had lost, you'd probably be in good shape to do something. You probably would have won your governor's race had you just talked about things people cared about instead of the election fraud. So sometimes don't you ever think to yourself, I wish I could just stop talking about this fake thing that Donald Trump made me make up so that I could actually talk about the stuff that's important? Because we agree about fentanyl. I agree. I wish we could deal with that.
I talked about that all the time at the campaign trail. I'm sorry you weren't with me.
You.
I'm sorry you weren't with me every step of the way. The people of Arizona understand me, and they know me, and they care about me, and I care about them.
Lake is currently running for the Arizona Senate seat, hoping to replace Kyrsten Sinema, who has just announced that she will not be running for re-election. She has quite a bit of support within the Republican Party, actually, but really only because the Republicans really want to win that Arizona seat. But Kari Lake still has demons from her past that she needs to address. Of course, time is relative, so was 2020 a long time ago? Not really, but in the context of someone believing and perpetuating something that they must know by now is a lie, then it is a very long time. It's like being hung up on your ex for 4 years. It's time to move on.
Let me just give you a couple facts.
Yeah.
2,000 mail-in ballots were accepted by Maricopa County after Election Day in 2020, after Election Day.
That was a new one on us, so we took the claim to election officials in Maricopa County who told us it's just not true. In fact, no ballots were accepted after the Election Day 7 p.m. deadline. Some ballots were scanned the next morning, giving them a timestamp after Election Day, but again, those ballots were turned in on Election Day by the deadline.
How many of you lost a client or two, a friend or two? Maybe your family members kind of become estranged because of this. We're all going through it right now, and we all know how hard it is right now, but we are strong people, and we will get to the end here, and I believe we'll be victorious at the end. You know, the God placed us at this moment for a reason. I talked about my moment with God where he told me you're going to do something special someday. And I don't know what it is. It may still be to come, who knows? But I know that putting me in the center of all of this with my fighting spirit, I believe that God is truly in control at this moment, and we win. I believe we win at the end of the day. He placed us here for a reason, right?
Compounding her dismay and disbelief at Trump's election loss in 2020, Lake also believes that she is the lawful governor of Arizona. Naturally, the 2022 election, according to her, was rigged against her because that is the only way that she could have possibly lost. Additionally, she's still holding out hope that Trump will name her as his running mate for 2024, but even Trump, I don't think, is that thick. I can't imagine that he would consider that to be a smart or a strategic move at this point. To maintain favor with Trump, however, she still refuses to acknowledge that Trump lost in 2020, and that reluctance to just state what actually happened is costing her. In a recent interview with CNN, Lake reaffirmed her position as an election denier, saying, quote, "I think it was a rigged election. I believe it was. But what I'm trying to do is look forward."
Did anyone give you advice to not talk about the 2020 election?
No. 2020 election, I think it was a rigged election. President Trump, I believe it was. But what I'm trying to do is look forward.
But for someone who's looking forward, she still talks an awful lot about past elections. She can't reasonably stop at this point. She'd lose that MAGA base that she has spent the last 4 years culling. Also, she would sabotage any hope she has of being Trump's running mate. She is his ride or die, whether he wants her to be or not. Alternatively, she might actually gain support from those non-MAGA Republicans if she actually just admitted that Trump lost the 2020 election. Other Republican leaders have already urged her to talk about the present and the future, i.e., those issues currently plaguing the people of Arizona and what she plans to do about them if and when she's elected to the Senate. The Republicans seem to finally be catching on to the fact that outrage over fake issues doesn't always galvanize voters. Unfortunately for Lake, however, the past is still something that she's very much entangled in. As part of Lake's election-denying scheme, she defamed a few people, and those people are seeking legal damages. Prior to all of this, Lake herself filed a few lawsuits in her attempt to prove that the election results in Arizona were tampered with. Not only were these suits unsuccessful, but they were so misguided that the lawyers who actually filed the suits were sanctioned. Not to be deterred, Lake continued on with her crusade, defaming 2 Republican election officials in Maricopa County, Bill Gates, not the billionaire, and Stephen Richer. She accused them of manipulating the ballots and injecting 300,000 illegal ballots into the final vote count in an effort to intentionally rig the Arizona election against her. Richer sued Lake for defamation, claiming that not only did she do damage to his career and personal life by knowingly repeating false statements about him with, quote, actual malice, but he and his family received death threats because of her. Lake tried to get the suit dismissed on the grounds that her statements were not defamatory. She said that they were just, quote, rhetorical hyperbole. But in December of last year, a Maricopa County judge ruled that the case would move forward. So she took it to the Arizona Court of Appeals. They didn't dismiss the case either. Lake tried to say that this was a violation of her First Amendment rights. She wrote on X, quote, "They're trying to take away our protected political speech so nobody running for office will be able to speak out and criticize elected officials. They're trying to criminalize honest journalism and our freedom of the press. They're trying to prevent moms and dads from going to school board meetings and criticizing their representatives. If this is successful, it will be the death of our First Amendment." So after all that, she then took it to the Arizona Supreme Court. They did not dismiss the case, and as of this month, the trial was set to move forward and move into the discovery phase. All of this is inconveniently timed for Lake as she is now being urged to move on from her election-denying ways, but she still has to face the consequences of carrying that dim torch for so long. By the way, Richer's lawyer is the same one who successfully sued Rudy Giuliani for defamation against election workers in Georgia. Rudy has since filed for bankruptcy. Maybe Kari Lake can spin all of this as a bad thing that's somehow good for her campaign, as proof that the establishment elites are trying to shut her up because they don't want her telling the truth, or whatever these MAGA people say. I guess we'll find out, but I am curious to see what comes out in Discovery. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thanks.